very tight schedule here this morning, and I'm pleased to say the Deputy First Minister joins us, and let's hear from you, Martin McGuinness. So how significant is today?
Well, I think it's hugely significant. This is President Obama's first visit to the North. Peter Robinson and I have been in his place on 5 occasions, so it's wonderful for us to have the opportunity to welcome him here to the north of Ireland. And obviously the significance lies in the very strong relationship that we have with the United States of America, which has resulted in thousands of new jobs through foreign direct investment, and also incredible support for our ongoing peace process, which is seen by President Obama and many others as the most successful peace process in the world today.
It seems that presidents can almost not resist the allure of the peace process because of the success of it. But for the ordinary man and woman on the street, what can we hope to gain from this visit? Will it be inward investment from America?
Well, we've already proven that in the course of the last 3 or 4 years we've attracted more jobs, more foreign direct investment from North America than at any other time in the history of the northern state. And that has come about through the very strong relationship that we had with Secretary of State Clinton, who, along with President Obama, sponsored for us a very important economic investment conference in the State Department several years ago. And President Obama is still very, very committed to that. I think also it's hugely significant that here we have the world leaders coming to a place that is seen as the most successful place for making peace anywhere on the planet. And that has to send a very strong message, I think, to them about their responsibilities to bring peace to a very troubled world, to end hunger, and to face up to the inequalities and injustices that exist in the world. And I know that many people have demonstrated over the course of the weekend, and some people have questioned about why should I go and meet with President Obama. Well, I should go and meet with President Obama and other world leaders to articulate views that they hold, that I feel equally strongly about, but to do it in a very positive and democratic way.
It's not a panacea, though, the peace process here, and we still have, obviously, the ongoing problems of sectarianism. What will you be saying to President Obama, and what are you hoping he will say to the young people gathered here today?
Well, I think where all of us need to recognise, and I've said this repeatedly over the course of recent times, and I've said it to my colleagues in government, that divided we are very weak, but united we can be very strong. And I think what we're going to hear today from President Obama is an articulation of how far we've come, how this place has been transformed, but we have still some considerable way to go to bear down on sectarianism and racism within our society. So there's still a job of work to be done, and we as politicians bear the biggest responsibility to take that forward in a way that, you know, makes a better life for all of our people. I mean, we live several thousand kids here in the Waterfront Hall. They are the future. Some of these children weren't even born at the time of the ceasefires. So it's our responsibility to build a better place for them, to get them jobs, and to have them moving freely in a society that is comfortable with each other's legitimate political opinions. So
is this his seal of approval on your shared future document, yours along with Peter Robinson?
Well, I think we'll wait and hear what he has to say, but I think that quite clearly President Obama is very engaged in this process. We've met him on 5 occasions. So this is a man who understands the importance of peace and understands the importance of him making a contribution, which hopefully he will do again today.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us. We'll have to leave it there. President's about to touch down, and back to you, Noel.
Yes, Tara, in fact, he has just touched down Air Force One there. Pretty grey skies up there at the international airport. And the President has had a long flight, but no doubt he and the First Lady will be well freshened up by the time they step down those steps onto the tarmac. And David Cameron arrived in Enniskillen last night. The Japanese Premier Shinzo Abe arrived last night. So here's the American President, and I guess the other gentleman, and Angela Merkel, of course, will be arriving in the course of the morning. So they've got a pretty tight schedule. The plane touches down here, and then the presidential party will be airlifted in Marine One, the American Air Force helicopter. Oops, we've lost it. Come back. Oh no, it'll reappear in a moment, don't worry. And then they'll go to the Belfast City Airport, and from the City Airport there'll be a motorcade along the Sydenham bypass to the Waterfront Hall, and the Waterfront Hall will then take up an hour or so, and then the President will make his way to Enniskillen, and the First Lady will be going down to Dublin, where she's been invited to take part in celebrations marking the 50th anniversary of John Kennedy's visit to Dublin. Let's just go back to my guests now. We should talk a little bit to Catherine about Michelle Obama. In fact, in makeup there, we were just talking about her antecedents may also be traced back to this part of the world, as indeed are Barack's.
Yes, with the election of excuse me, Barack Obama, we looked at really an amazing American, someone who had roots in Africa, someone who had roots in America, but also the exploration of Michelle Obama's ancestry. And she discovered much about her ancestry when a New York Times reporter went in search of her roots and traced them all the way back to a young 6-year-old girl who was sold from South Carolina to Georgia, and looked at the fact that the child that she produced may have been a child that was fathered by her master, who had, I believe it's been traced back to Ulster Scots roots. And this is very typical of African Americans in many ways, and something that we're re-exploring. And so, again, talking about it being a wonderful place where peace is known. I think in the United States we had a bit of a war 150 years ago. The President might allude to it, and peace was achieved. And indeed, it's great to see that he comes in search of his roots. He was in the South a couple years ago, and now Michelle Obama is bringing her daughters over and re-exploring the family history. And for her to touch down in this region, I think, is quite historic.
Let's go back to the Waterfront Hall, where Tara has got the Secretary of State, I believe.
No, well, thank you. Secretary of State, we've heard about Martin McGuinness's views on the significance of today. From your point of view, what will this mean for Northern Ireland?
Well, it's fantastic that President Obama is visiting Northern Ireland for the first time, alongside 7 of the other most powerful leaders in the world. It's our chance to show what huge progress has been made in Northern Ireland since the political settlement. Just a few years ago, it would have been unthinkable to have this kind of summit in Northern Ireland. Now we can tell the world what a great place Northern Ireland is to live, to visit, to open up a business and invest in. That's a great opportunity which we'll be seizing with enthusiasm.
And when it comes to the security operation, it has been massive, but it hasn't been required so far.
I'm afraid a very vigilant approach to security is always necessary in Northern Ireland. And for an event on the scale of the G8, inevitably the police operation is huge. All the G8s over recent years have been marred by public order issues. So far that hasn't happened for this G8, which I think is actually a testimony to the very effective planning and preparation that the PS&I do. But in the light of the public order issues that always come with G8, combined, I'm afraid, with the enduring and severe threat from terrorism, it was absolutely vital that we produce this big security operation to ensure that we keep not only the G8 leaders and their delegations safe, but of course make sure that we keep Northern Ireland safe as well.
Do you think we will gain more foreign investment from America as a result of this visit?
I think so. I think that the reality is for many around the world, they still view Northern Ireland through the lens of the Troubles. The name Northern Ireland still conjures up for many people pictures of the sort of 70s and 80s of street conflicts and terrorist violence. And this is a good opportunity to demonstrate the scenic beauty of Northern Ireland, the fact that its quality of life here is great, and that it's a brilliant place for investment. That must help, I think, enable Northern Ireland to compete in the intensely competitive global race for jobs and investment.
It hasn't been entirely perfect, though, obviously, skirmishes in East Belfast last night. Were you disappointed about that?
Well, as I say, with every single G8 over recent years has been affected by protests, some of which has been violent. It would be impossible if we were to be able to get through the whole of the G8 with not a single arrest, with no public order issues at all. Of course, it's a grave concern whenever public order problems arise in Northern Ireland, but the PS&I and their partners have done a tremendous job to prepare for this important summit, and I'm absolutely confident that they're going to be doing their very best to keep people safe and secure and ensure that we have a successful summit.
And what do you think President Obama's message will be to the young people gathered in the Waterfront Hall today?
Well, I haven't seen his speech yet, but I hope that he's going to have a message of hope about Northern Ireland's future, about the fact that so much has been achieved, but also that there is further work to be done to address sectarian divisions. I think we all know that for many people in Northern Ireland they've entirely left behind those kind of preconceptions and prejudices, but for some there still are deep-rooted divisions between them and their neighbours, and helping to address those and building mutual trust, building reconciliation is an important task for the government and the executive over future years, and I'm sure Barack Obama is going to have something to say about the importance of doing that.
Secretary of State, thanks very much indeed for joining us. And from the Waterfront Hall, for now, it's back to you, Noel.
Thank you, Tara. We'll just stay with these pictures of Air Force One at the international airport. A lot of water on the tarmac there. The security people moving into situation. Come a long way since Franklin Roosevelt took the first ever flight by a US president. He flew to take part in a conference with Winston Churchill and other Allied leaders in Casablanca in Morocco in 1943. Took him 3 days, apparently, to get here in a Boeing known as the Flying Boat. Had to go to South America and then the trip across the Atlantic. President Obama is a frequent passenger on this plane or the other one. There are two jumbos which qualify as Air Force One. Whichever one he is on, of course, is Air Force One. And he has been, he's been all over the world in it. And his last trip was in May. And he's taken hundreds of flights, not just, of course, internationally, but within the US as well. A few interesting factoids about Air Force One. The President's suite is in the nose of it. There are two couches folding into twin beds, a separate dressing room, a lavatory and a shower, and a spacious office. It sounds like an estate agent, this, doesn't it? There's a medical facility with an operating table and every medicine known to mankind. Another conference room behind that, seating compartments for staff, guests, Secret Service agents. 76 passengers in total can sit in this plane. They can watch movies, make calls, or even access the internet. I could go on for hours about this. And we may have to if it takes a long time to get out of the plane. You imagine that, I suppose, the presidential couple are woken up some time ago. If they have managed to sleep, I wonder with the cares of the world on his shoulders, the President may not get much sleep. One of those great cares, of course, Catherine, is the situation in Syria. Now that is believed to perhaps going to dominate to some extent what happens in Fermanagh this week. And we had the meeting in London yesterday between President Putin and David Cameron. Two irreconcilable positions there. A big headache for the President.
Well, I think it's a big headache for the world, but Obama did declare that he would definitely take action if chemical weapons were proven to be used. Very careful wording there. And then what ensued was indeed evidence, and there is the matter of, will America intervene? Will America stand by and let there be genocide against one's own people? Again, this seems to be all too often a refrain. And I do think the weight of the world can be on the President, but clearly he must sleep, he must rest, and he must make these good gestures, coming to speak to a hall full of young people. And as you point out, everyone is excited to think about 50 years ago, the Kennedy visit to Ireland or the Clinton visit to Ireland. But some of my students will be in that hall from Queen's University. And as you point out, they weren't born, perhaps, when this entire Clinton Northern Ireland peace process. And for them, Obama does represent something, I think, hope for youth, the power of education. Mrs. Obama very much believes in that, and as he was a student at Harvard when I was teaching there, and Mrs. Obama was at Princeton, another one of my alumni, I think as a couple they very much represent the amazement of American education, the rise through the ranks. So they are a very powerful couple in what they represent, and that's very symbolic. Hopefully some of that charisma can rub off on the other G8 people.
And Michelle Obama has been very involved with young people. I mean, she's got this whole project, for example, about youth obesity. You know, she's really made that a focus of her time as First Lady.
And military families, because we are witnessing, I think, really historic times with the rise of suicides in young people, veterans, and these are issues that we all need to address internationally. And so even though it's to the great discomfort of President Putin meeting with Cameron to look at these issues and try and smile, coming together is a very powerful metaphor. And indeed, we look at Northern Ireland, which has been historic by having people come together. And
Fionnuala, just looking at the body language yesterday in London at the news conference, I mean, you said, Catherine says, coming together, and that's very much what these G8 summits are supposed to be about, establishing united fronts. But whatever they say about tax and transparency and trade, Syria